Garrett. So what do we know so far about the Judiciary Committee's hearing that's scheduled for December 4th?
I'm told that this hearing is something we should look at as a 30,000-foot view on impeachment. The Judiciary Committee membership hope that they will have Intel's report on everything that we know about this Ukraine scandal by then. But even if they don't, this hearing will be to set the table. What is a high crime and misdemeanor? What is an impeachable offense? And perhaps, if they have the report by then, some answering of the questions of, does what is laid out in this report rise to that standard? But this is Judiciary Committee essentially setting the table for what could be a series of hearings on the Ukraine issue itself, starting by answering that fundamental question is what is an impeachable offense for the President of the United States? We will start to see that work beginning on Wednesday, December 4th.
And then you have the federal judge's ruling on Don McGahn's testimony. A lot of talk about the avenues of inquiry and the testimony the judge's order, if upheld, could potentially lead to. So I guess the biggest question is, does this change in any way the timeline for the Democrats?
Not as of this moment. Look, we know that the DOJ has requested a stay on this decision. The administration's likely to appeal. If you're trying to move the impeachment inquiry along in an expeditious fashion, as Democrats have been trying to do, having a bunch of court rulings still to come on this makes that difficult. So based on the conversations I had, last week with Democrats, this week with some of the aides who are still in town, the general feeling here is they want to keep moving as planned here. And if McGahn becomes available through the process of this impeachment inquiry, that's great. If this ruling shakes loose other witnesses, that's even better. But that they're not going to stop what they're doing here and wait for Don McGahn, who is, of course, not really privy to or relevant to the Ukraine question. Remember, Democrats were seeking his testimony related to what he told Robert Mueller months ago. So the impeachment inquiry will likely move on apace here unless the courts do Democrats another favor here and move very quickly on this.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.